Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Saturday, September 17th, 2016. Tropics, interesting this weekend. We have a couple of sheared systems, Julia here, Karl out here in the open tropical Atlantic. Both of them suffering from similar fates right now, similar impediments. Strong upper level winds decapitating the convection over Julia. The same thing here with Karl. Karl's got some drier air to the west of it, though. Really, the main focus is going to be Karl, but I don't want to ignore Julia over here, that maybe, just maybe, sometime tomorrow into Monday in an area maybe up here, it starts to try to re-energize just a little bit, not thinking that it's going to become a hurricane or anything. But you see, for the first time in a while, some of these thunderstorms are starting to develop and not just blow immediately away off to the east. So this might be a sign that it is finding slightly better conditions, and I mean only slightly. So the main issue here would be any boating interest out here along the Gulf Stream especially, and in the offshore waters, 10, 20, 30 miles offshore. Pretty brisk east to northeast winds, choppy seas, that kind of thing. And then certainly the increase in rip currents out there. I was thinking about taking my kids down to the beach this evening here in southeast North Carolina, Wrightsville Beach, and got to be careful of those rip currents because the ocean is quite agitated right now with this system just sitting out there. So we'll watch this. It's not over till it's over. You never say never when you're dealing with the tropics. Now, looking at Karl, and I'll show you the visible satellite shot here. First of all, you can tell that it's kind of elongated, not quite as round. I mean, look at Julia, at least here, this is a round signature in the satellite, and we can see that even better here on what I like to call the X-ray, and it's not an X-ray, but this is what I like to think of it as, because you can see the structure better, just like an X-ray can show your bones and soft tissue and other things like that. And so Julia is much more round in its appearance. Karl is a little bit more sort of goldfish shaped. Those little crackers, kids like them, goldfish, a little bit, right? It's elliptical, and that certainly isn't very healthy for a tropical system. And this will probably change over time. This will evolve as it struggles with these different impediments through its path over the next few days. But this gives you an idea that even though Julia is almost completely void of any convection, it's the better organized of the two from a vorticity standpoint, from the bundling of the energy, so to speak. And we'll see. Karl may eventually come around. We have plenty of time to watch and see what happens. Again, looking at the culprits, the usual suspects here, very strong wind coming across Julia here. And if this relaxes just a little bit, we may see a period tomorrow into Monday where it might have a chance to develop a little bit more convection. But that's going to be a fairly short window, and there's plenty more very strong upper level winds waiting for it, and it probably won't amount to much. But along the coastal Carolinas, from Charleston maybe up to Cape Hatteras, and I'll kind of draw that in for you here, along this zone here, don't be surprised if we get a few bands of heavier showers coming on shore later tomorrow and especially Monday. And then eventually Julia should kind of come up and then go back down to the south and west as a ridge builds over the top again, and hopefully it'll just kind of dissipate over here. But it certainly is a nuisance. And as for Karl, well, the upper level winds seemingly favorable, have green over here, but they're coming in against it, sort of across the system. So if the upper level winds are 10 knots and Karl is moving west at 15, then you have sort of this net shear of 25, right? It's kind of like, if you're driving a bicycle down the road at 5 miles per hour, just leisurely riding along, and another bicycle who's going 15 runs into you, it's no good. It's like you need everything going the same way for there not to be collisions. And right now we do have a collision of the upper level winds here with the westward moving tropical storm. So that's going to impede development for a while, but eventually Karl should, as long as it doesn't dissipate, get into an area of higher ocean heat content here. And it really depends on whether or not it is north or south of 20 degrees latitude in what longitude. So if it were to dip far enough south, it could get into this warmer ocean temperature regime quicker. So we'll have to see. And then, boy, it's got plenty of upper ocean heat content to work with, depending on where it goes. You never know, right? Lots of warm, deep water. That's what this means. The upper ocean heat content, when it is high, like you see here on the scale, I mean, most of this is very warm, and it's from the mid and upper part of the scale in some locations, mainly in the Caribbean for the upper part. But even here in the southwest Atlantic, very deep, warm water, and that's important because it has a lot of energy to work with. Now, the various models, this just updated a little while ago, sort of your model envelope, and you can kind of draw a cone out of it if you want to, or in this case, it's really the envelope, the guidance envelope as they refer to it in the Hurricane Center discussions. And overall, you see this kind of a southerly dip in the track due to several factors that are very complicated. Won't get into them here, but this should continue to lose a little bit of latitude and then eventually start to turn back to the west-northwest with time, and then be in a position well to the north of Puerto Rico here by day 5. Exactly where and how strong it is at that point will have a lot to do with where it ends up after that. I would not be surprised if this entire envelope sort of shifts more like this in the next day or so, so that we see a position in 5 days where it's maybe somewhere in here. That wouldn't surprise me. It's just that's the way it's been seemingly all the time. Once in a while you'll get it where it's an absolute guarantee that they curve out in the middle of the Atlantic, but that's usually because you have a pretty strong trough digging in. In this situation, the troughs, these areas of energy in the upper atmosphere, are moving by to the north fairly quickly, like a bunch of cabs going by. I like to use that, the trough's going to pick it up. It's like waiting for a bus. So now it's like a bunch of cabs going by instead of a big bus, right? And the cabs are quick, they might not see you, and then you got to wait for the next one. Whereas the bus, if you're there at the right time, you catch the bus and off you go. I think that's a pretty good analogy, if I may say so myself. And so we'll see what happens. Does this wait for the bus to stop, or will the cabs go by to the north, leaving this to kind of meander after day 5? So this is the intensity prediction for the most part. The next probably 3 days, it's going to seem like an eternity to those of us watching these kinds of things. Very, very slow intensification, but overall the model's indicating by day 4 and 5, the intensity envelope ramps up pretty quickly. You see that from the H-Wharf, which isn't very good before these things really get going. But, it is a tropical storm. It's past the genesis point, so to speak. So, maybe it'll have a good handle on it. But overall, the models are suggesting this will become a hurricane by the time we get to the day 5, 4, 5, around there. So, luckily, it should be well north of the Lesser Antilles at that point. Now, looking at the GFS, the operational, this is the 850 millibar level from this morning's run. This is the outline of a pretty large area of high pressure in the atmosphere. This is the 5,000 foot level, and you see these different height lines. And it's a pretty stout ridge, and that's going to keep this moving west, and then maybe even south of west, as I talked about. This is Julia over here, and there is Karl. And this is another system coming off Africa now that we'll have to watch. This probably will turn on out to see if it develops, but you never know, right? So this is 24 hours valid Sunday morning the 18th, so this is tomorrow morning. This is now jumping out ahead 3 days, so this is Tuesday morning at around 8 a.m. Eastern Time. That reflection in the 850 chart is Julia, believe it or not, near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Little low clouds, probably a rainy Monday if that happens, into Tuesday, Monday night into Tuesday. But look, ridge gets pretty strong here over the central Atlantic by this time frame. We're out here 72 hours, okay? And there's Karl moving along. Still doesn't look very impressive in this vorticity field. Not a lot of energy associated with it just yet. Then here's our other system coming out. And we'll see, maybe this will curve up, maybe it doesn't. Lots of bullets in the gun, so to speak, with these tropical waves coming off of Africa. And it's not over yet. There's more where these came from, and we'll worry about that later. Finally, jumping out even farther into time, or further into time as it were, 120 hours. Yeah, now this doesn't look very healthy at all, so I don't know what to make of this. Karl, somewhere in here, ridge trying to build in over the eastern United States and the northwest Atlantic. Some trough energy here swinging on by like one of those taxi cabs I talked about. So it would presumably miss this connection here. So it misses this cab, but maybe this energy drops in. It's hard to say. When you get out past 5 days especially, so much can happen. So we'll wait and see what's going on as time progresses, but I think it's a decent bet. There's Bermuda right there, that Karl will be somewhere between Puerto Rico and Bermuda, tucked in here somewhere by day 5. Where it goes from there, does it come on west and threaten the southeast? Is it weak and comes towards Florida? We don't know. More than likely it'll try to escape out to sea, because most of them do. But the ones that don't are the ones we have to obviously watch very closely. For what it's worth, this is the GFS ensembles. Let me zoom out, then I'm going to zoom back in. The ensemble members, the operational is the one that I just showed you of these different maps here. These are all your operational runs. And then you have these different ensemble members that have slightly different variables, so that you have different outcomes, in some cases more dramatic. And what I have noticed with this, let me zoom in on it, over the last day or so, is the ensemble envelope itself is starting to lean more and more to the south and west. And you can tell some of these members here, this one's pretty far to the south. That's pretty extreme, obviously. And then it comes in and does a pretty weird hook there. So let me just point out something very interesting. This right here is the official forecast right now. I'm going to draw back over it with yellow. That's the official forecast. All of the GFS ensemble members, except for a couple, are well to the south and west of the current official forecast. And even ensemble member 9 over here makes a run at eastern Carteret County in North Carolina. Now don't worry about that necessarily. That's just one of 20 ensemble members. A lot of them bring it up here and then just mill it around. It just kind of illustrates my point that we're going to have to watch Karl, because there's going to be that point where, does it wait for the big bus to come along? I'm going to use this analogy one more time and then I'll put it to bed. Or will the taxi cabs keep going by to the north, having it kind of step out into the street trying to hail one, but it missed, so it just keeps moseying on down the way until finally it runs into land somewhere. This is not over yet, so we shall certainly be watching closely. All right? That is it from me for today. Again, I'm Mark Sept for HurricaneTrack.com. As always, I do appreciate you tuning in and checking out what I have to offer, and hopefully you learned something from it. With that being said, have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon, and I'll be back with you again tomorrow.